Afternoon all. So what I want to take you through today is, I guess, a bit of a journey of who Morton Co is and how we're using environmental stewardship within our supply chain and the innovation we're doing to really show and bring our business forward around economic resilience as well. So for a bit of an intro for those who don't know who Morton Co is and how diverse our business has come over the last few years, we're a feedlot business at our core. We operate 3 feedlots in southeast Queensland, feeding about 107,000 head of cattle. From there, we now have some other diversified businesses that are attached to that, made up of a transport business, branded beef business, farming business, fertiliser business and a stock feeds business. And so as we go through this, I'll talk you through a little bit around our feedlot emissions and then how we work together through this to bring a circular economy around our supply chain. So when we look at our feedlot emissions and how this comes together and how we use this information then to drive sustainability and environmental stewardship within our business, if we start and look at our breakdown of feedlot emissions, you can see that our Scope 3 emissions make up the majority of the emissions within our feedlot business. From there, you can see within our Scope 1 that methane, and from that enteric methane, makes up the majority of the emissions that we have within there. And then when we look at our Scope 3 emissions, the majority of that comes from our purchased livestock. So one of the big movements forward for the feedlot industry in recent times and through the National Greenhouse Gas Inventory Report that was released for 2023 recently was a recalculation of how feedlot enteric methane emissions were calculated. And so what that work has come about through industry over the past 20 years, seeing that the initial calculation number that's being used is quite dramatically different to what we're seeing in the research that's being done. And so it's a great example of industry coming together and working over many years to be able to show improvements in the calculation methods. The other one is that it does take time. So these, we often get frustrated around calculation methods and they do take time, but science needs to keep, and research needs to keep persevering to show the good things that we're doing. So if we look at the Morton Co business and how this all fits together. So as I said, with our feedlot business at our core, and when we look at our main emission source being enteric methane, one of our biggest focuses we've had over the past few years is around methane inhibiting feed additives and how we can utilise those within our business. So where we've done that in a starting point is we did a large-scale Bovaer trial back in 2022 in partnership with Coles, DSM and UNE. And it was a successful trial because what we found out of it is we could get a large reduction in methane and we had no impact on feedlot performance or carcass performance. The challenge out of that was as well though is we saw it was hard to get an economic benefit. So we would be paying more for a product and at that stage not being able to see an economic benefit. We've continued to look at products and there's been further work with others such as Asparagopsis, and we're currently doing another pilot with an Asparagopsis product at the moment with one of our feedlots. And from that we're really focused on feedlot performance. And so we know that there's a methane reduction benefit there, but we're really focused on feedlot performance to be able to get an economic benefit out of that. From there, so one of the byproducts we have at a feedlot, and if we look at our Grassdale site with manure, we produce 100,000 tonne of manure from that site a year. And so trying to find ways to value add those products. So over the past 5 years, we've been working on it. It's been a commercial product for the last couple of years, is a granulated composted feedlot manure product. So this product can be used through conventional farming equipment and can be distributed out to a much larger geographical area than we have been able to previously. What we're seeing with that product at the moment is that using that in combination with synthetic fertilisers, you can reduce the amount of synthetic fertiliser use you're doing and still get the same or better yield results. So when we look at our emissions profile again, particularly around our feed procurement, we can start to look at being able to help producers be able to reduce their synthetic load, which is one of their biggest emission sources as well, around nitrogen. Some of the other things with our fertiliser product that fits in with our transport business and our grain supply as well, we've now got some partners within our grain supply where they're supplying grain to us, we're supplying fertiliser back to them on return same truckloads, and bringing that back and then bringing grain back in again. So we're starting to create a much more efficient piece within our transport piece of our business as well, by being able to return product previously that we couldn't do. If we keep moving through to our stock feeds business, so from our fertiliser business, supplies into our farming operations and also into our farming supply chain, to be able to supply grain back into the feedlot and also into the development of our stock feeds business. So one of the areas that you would have seen through our emissions is through our livestock emissions through our Scope 3 through our procured cattle. And so one of the things we've been working on the last few years is finding ways of being able to get a lick block, a supplement block out to our supply chain to be able to get those cattle into the feedlot at a younger age at the feedlot entryway. So we've been developing a high protein lick block for distribution out into pastoral country. Through that as well, we've done a lot of work with the Merrill methane emission reduction in livestock scheme and done a few projects with them as well around getting additives into those blocks. And we're currently working on that at the moment of testing a number of different additives into those blocks for distribution out into grazing systems. To try and help those producers really understand when and how to use those blocks, we've also developed a software system called Predictor Plus. And so that software system uses fecal dry matter digestibility. So we look at the dry matter digestibility of pastures using fecal samples, and we can then help producers understand throughout the year where the gaps are in their protein and in their energy supply within their pastures to be able to help them better understand when they should start supplementing and stop supplementing. So that they can make much better decisions, and so they'll be ahead of the game when they're getting particularly their feeder cattle ready to come into our system. From there, those livestock will then come back into our feedlot. So hopefully through that you can start to see how the innovative solutions that we're starting to bring to the supply chain are helping us reduce the emissions within our supply chain. So that's me. So happy to take any questions depending timing.
Brad, hi. Mary King from McDonald's. Thanks so much for that. They're doing fantastic work. Just a really quick question around the feed additive piece. We saw a lot of blowback in the media at the end of last year, and I'm just wondering if you're seeing any continued concerns around that or commentary around that, and is it something that you're continuing to monitor closely, or was it a lot of storm in a teacup, I suppose?
So it was a lot of storm. Like it came and it went pretty quick. I guess where we sit with it, we back the science. So in anything we do and any product we use and we feed to our cattle, we look at the science before we do that. And so we've done that, we back the science and we continue to do that. I guess if we look at our current feeding program we're doing where we are piloting some cattle on Asparagopsis. We've worked very close with our processing partner on that product just to make sure they're comfortable with it and their customers are comfortable with having it in there as well.
Looking at your first or second slide, that footprint of your feed, that one, was that done before or after the revision of the emission factor?
That's done after the revision.
Right.
So that's with the new calculation.
Okay. Well, just interested in the nitrous oxide because that's sort of my background. So as methane gets reduced, actually the nitrous oxide proportion is going to increase as well.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I missed a little bit in our fertiliser piece, is we are doing a fair bit of work around our composting process at the moment to try and, on two parts, one of them is actually to try and get more nitrogen bound in our compost into our granulated product. And the other co-benefit of that, hopefully, is we can reduce our nitrous oxide emissions as well through that process. So it's, once again, a bit of a long burn on that, but that's some of the work we're doing there as well.